Welcome back to Our Catholic Faith Today. I'm your host, and today we're diving into a burning question. Is it possible to live out the Beatitudes as a good Catholic in America today? Or do modern controversies around faith, family, inclusion, and justice make that vision hopelessly out of step? To help us wrestle with this, I'll bring in insights and challenges from some of today's best-known Catholic apologists and thinkers. Bishop Robert Barron, Dr. Mike Schmitz, Trent Horn, and voices like Trujillo, who are all tackling these messy questions head-on in parishes, podcasts, and public debates. Let's begin this journey with the foundations. The Beatitudes are an ancient challenge in a modern world. We'll start with Bishop Barron, who never tires of saying that the Beatitudes aren't just nice ideas, they're a battle plan for spiritual revolution. Bishop Robert Barron is the founder of Word on Fire Catholic Ministries and a leading figure in Catholic evangelization worldwide. Currently, the Bishop of the Diocese of Winona-Rochester in Minnesota, he is recognized for his groundbreaking use of media to spread the Catholic faith, including the acclaimed Catholicism documentary series and a prolific YouTube presence that has reached millions. Barron asks, what does it mean, practically, to be poor in spirit or a peacemaker in a society obsessed with status, power, and winning? He insists the Beatitudes are not just warm spiritual poetry. They are a revolutionary roadmap that calls for a total reordering of our priorities. In his words, Jesus offers both a critique and an alternative to a world obsessed with wealth, pleasure, power, and honor. Barron teaches that to be poor in spirit is to detach from reliance on material possessions and the illusion of self-sufficiency. In a culture where status and achievement often define self-worth, this beatitude rejects addictive attachment to things, proposing radical spiritual freedom instead. For Barron, practically living it means choosing trust in God over anxiety about success and sharing generously with those in need, even when it costs something real. Likewise, being a peacemaker in a society fueled by conflict, division, and a continual power struggle means much more than simply avoiding arguments. Barron interprets this as an active, sometimes costly intervention in favor of reconciliation, placing oneself between antagonists, seeking dialogue, and healing wounds, even at the risk of misunderstanding or rejection. He often cites the example of Christ crucified, enduring violence yet responding with love, mercy, and forgiveness, as the ultimate model for how the Beatitudes confront the cycle of anger and dominance in modern life. In sum, Barron urges Catholics to take the Beatitudes as a battle plan for a spiritual revolution, detaching from society's addictive substitutes for God and embracing the paradoxical happiness of humility, meekness, servanthood, and courageous peacemaking in daily life. Now let's turn to Dr. Mike Schmitz. Dr. Mike Schmitz is a Catholic priest, author, and internationally acclaimed speaker, best known for his powerful preaching and his ability to make the faith engaging for modern audiences. Serving as chaplain at the University of Minnesota Duluth and director of youth and young adult ministry for the Diocese of Duluth, Dr. Mike's influence has grown far beyond his local community through his popular YouTube teachings with Ascension Presents and the chart-topping Bible in a Year and Catechism in a Year podcasts. He reminds us that the Beatitudes call for heroic love in ordinary life. He shares stories of personal struggle, how choosing mercy over anger, humility over pride, and bridge building over tribalism asks for more than our comfort zone. And yet, he says, these are choices we're invited to make each day. Dr. Mike Schmitz consistently emphasizes that the Beatitudes challenge believers to a heroic love lived out in everyday, sometimes uncomfortable moments. For Schmitz, this doesn't mean famous acts of virtue, but small, consistent choices to go beyond self-interest and comfort zones, choices every Christian is called to make, even in struggle. He shares that real faith is forged when a person chooses mercy over anger, forgiving co-workers or family even in the midst of disagreement, or when someone practices humility over pride by admitting mistakes, asking for forgiveness, or listening openly rather than insisting on being right. For Dr. Mike, heroic love also shows up in building bridges rather than feeding division, reaching out with kindness and respect to people who think, act, or believe very differently, rejecting the world's pull toward tribalism and echo chambers. He openly recounts personal stories, times when he has struggled to forgive, doubted God's grace, or failed to act out of charity, reminding listeners that the journey is about choosing again and again to act with compassion, even when it feels costly or misunderstood. Schmitz encourages Catholics to saturate their lives in prayer with the Beatitudes, using them as a reference point for reflecting regularly on daily encounters and decisions. Ultimately, Father Mike's message is both simple and radical. Christ invites everyone, every day, to lean into heroic love by serving, forgiving, and welcoming others, transforming ordinary life into the arena where the Beatitudes come alive. Now that we have the foundation of the Beatitudes, we'll start building the walls with faith, doubt, and the culture wars. But now let's get honest. Much of Catholic America is torn between conflicting values. Trent Horn isn't afraid to tackle the hard teachings. Trent Horn is a renowned Catholic apologist, writer, and speaker, widely respected for tackling the toughest questions and objections to the Catholic faith. A convert to Catholicism, Trent serves as a staff apologist at Catholic Answers, where he hosts the popular podcast, The Council of Trent. He's fielded questions on LGBTQ+ inclusion, gender identity, immigration, and what it truly means to love the sinner while upholding Catholic doctrine. Horn's advice? Don't back away from hard topics, engage, argue respectfully, but never assume dialogue means dilution of truth. Trent Horn is known for his willingness to engage with the most contentious and challenging topics facing the Church today, particularly around sexuality, gender, and immigration, as well as controversial themes like abortion and doctrine. He stands out for his clarity and his commitment to both intellectual rigor and pastoral sensitivity. Trent Horn tackles the hard teachings head-on. He insists that Catholic teaching on issues like LGBTQ+ inclusion, same-sex marriage, gender identity, and sexual morality is non-negotiable and rooted in Scripture and tradition. However, he encourages Catholics not to avoid these difficult topics or respond with anger or contempt. Instead, he models a method built on calm, respectful engagement, insisting that clarity about truth can be paired with genuine compassion. He regularly debates and responds to advocates for revising church teaching, carefully distinguishing between upholding doctrine and judging individuals. Horn stresses that loving the sinner doesn't mean approving every action and reminds listeners that dialogue doesn't mean diminishing or distorting core beliefs. For Horn, respectful debate is key. He argues that dialogue and disagreement, even on emotionally charged issues, are important because they demonstrate the Church's openness to reason and humanity, not simply ideological entrenchment. He is transparent that his willingness to sit for public dialogue isn't an endorsement of the other side's views, but a sign of respect for earnest conversation and the hope for mutual understanding, even where sharp disagreement exists. Horn often raises concern about Catholics who either make doctrine optional, celebrating what the Church opposes, or who reduce mercy to permissiveness. He challenges progressive Catholic voices to remain honest about the content of the faith, while warning conservative Catholics against turning every disagreement into a culture war. On immigration, Horn acknowledges the legitimate need for laws and border security, but calls Catholics to advocate for justice and dignity for migrants, echoing the Church's teaching that every person is made in God's image. Trent Horn's central message: don't shy away from what's hard. Catholics are called to speak the truth in love, Ephesians 4:15, engaging with modern culture openly, compassionately, but always rooted in what the Church actually teaches. Authentic dialogue for Horn is a tool for both evangelization and reconciliation, but it must never come at the expense of clarity about Catholic doctrine. And then there's Yunuen Trujillo. Yunuen Trujillo is a Catholic lay minister, faith-based community organizer, and immigration attorney known nationally for her leadership in inclusive LGBTQ+ ministry within the Church. As the Religious Formation Coordinator, Spanish, for the Catholic ministry with lesbian and gay persons of the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. Her witness is about accompaniment, walking with those who feel excluded, seeing Christ in the marginalized, and keeping the Beatitudes alive in the real mess of parish life and divided families. Where some see contradiction, she finds hope in dialogue and small everyday acts of mercy even when they don't make headlines. Yunuen Trujillo stands at the intersection of faith, advocacy, and accompaniment. She brings a lived witness of the Beatitudes into some of the most contentious spaces in the American Church. Walking with the marginalized Trujillo's ministry isn't about theory. It's about standing with those who have too often felt left out: immigrants, LGBTQ+ Catholics, and anyone pushed to the margins. She sees Christ in marginalized people and finds the Beatitudes alive in practical acts of inclusion, sitting with those facing family rejection, amplifying the voices of parents and allies, organizing support for immigrants, and building bridges through parish-based LGBTQ+ ministry and educational outreach. Her approach, sometimes called accompaniment, means being physically present in moments of crisis, listening at pastoral care sessions, walking alongside families, praying at parish events, or sharing resources via platforms like LLGBT Catholics. Trujillo advocates for a church that is a church of encounter, one that chooses acting with dignity, presence, and authentic welcome over exclusion or silence. Trujillo openly names the fear and pain that can fuel division within the church, whether it's debate over LGBTQ+ rights, gender questions, or immigration justice. Where some see irreconcilable contradiction between doctrine and welcome, she finds hope in the slow work of dialogue, patience, and countless small acts of mercy that foster healing, even when formal policies move slowly or not at all. She credits her Catholic community, especially allies who asked her to stay. At times she considered leaving, with helping her find her calling. Her work in parish ministry and advocacy pushes the boundaries for greater inclusion, even while respecting doctrinal lines, always advocating for listening, mutual discernment, and honest self-examination in church life. For Yunuen Trujillo, the Beatitudes are not just ancient texts, they're a spiritual and practical compass, calling Catholics to courageous accompaniment, solidarity with the excluded radical welcome, and hope-filled persistence within messy, imperfect communities. Where do we go from here? So, what do these apologists and leaders tell us about being a good Catholic now? That it's not about perfection, but about wrestling honestly with faith and tension. It's about both and living, holding truth with love, doctrine alongside dialogue, invitation without judgment. Barron warns of two dangers: falling into a culture war Catholicism, obsessed with fighting, or a watered-down faith that avoids the tough questions. Dr. Mike and Trent Horn urge real encounter, getting uncomfortable, risking misunderstandings, and trusting in God's grace to do the heavy lifting. As the bishops frame it, the Beatitudes demand we move beyond talking points, embodying Christ's mercy and justice, especially across the most painful divides. Whether that's at your family dinner table or in the voting booth, it's the daily, radical yes to faithful witness. How are you living the Beatitudes? That's where we'll leave it. Do you agree with Barron's battle plan? With Horn's boldness? With Yunuen's ministry of presence? How are you experiencing the tension between love and doctrine in your faith life? Send in your stories and questions. Let's keep the dialogue going. Be sure to like, subscribe, and join us on Patreon for deeper dives and community conversation. Until next time, keep walking the path, truth and love together.